Hello and welcome to the NBA Outlet Preview Series presented by OTGBasketball.com. Make sure you follow OTG on Twitter at OTGBasketball. Also hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron and our OTG Warriors guy, Théo Salaun. What's up, guys?
How's it going, guys?
Welcome to the OTG Death Lineup.
I'm a little bit relieved tonight. We're talking number one in our preview series. You know, this is our last team here. Kory and I have kind of worked through all 30 teams. It's finally here. Teo's here to talk Warriors. Before we talk about the ranking being number one, let's talk last season. Obviously, successful year, 67 wins, championship. They add a player like Kevin Durant. It looks like they're going to win a lot more chips. What were your thoughts on the team from last year?
I mean, last year was obviously, as successful as a season can be. That's what you want out of a year. You wanted KD to come in and start meshing with the guys. The beginning of the season was a little bit rocky as they adjusted to the chemistry of having a new superstar on the roster, but it obviously worked out in the end. Some interesting things that developed and that we saw kind of come to a close in the finals and the playoffs is the Zaza-JaVale rotation, where JaVale kind of fell out of favor in the playoffs as the team stuck with Zaza and then the small ball lineup. So some of those similar questions will go into this season, but, the offseason moves should make it likely to repeat this coming season, and we'll see how that goes.
Best team in basketball. Obviously, hands down, they make quick work of every other opponent in the playoffs on their road to beating Cleveland in 5 games. The regular season, it started out a little bit bumpy. I remember opening night, they got blown out by the Spurs. And,
Yep.
Obviously there was the overreaction to see this might not work out after all. And by mid-February and March, it felt like this team was destined to win a title. First in offensive rating, second in defensive rating. This wasn't just a team that blew you out offensively. It was one of the best teams defensively still. Even without, playing a lot of small ball, this team was still – Kevin Durant had one of his best years ever on the defensive floor. Draymond Green, obviously, we know what he did on the defensive end. The Warriors were what they were, and they set themselves up to win a couple more rings.
Yeah, amazing season. Anytime you dominate like they did, were you guys surprised they were able to handle Cleveland so easily in the finals?
One thing that I was definitely surprised by is Tristan Thompson's regression. I thought he was going to be a big problem for the Warriors. I didn't think – first I thought he was going to be a little too energetic for Zaza to deal with. And then if that was the case, once the team went small ball, I thought he would kind of bully Draymond around a bit. But he obviously did not. He had just a horrible finals. So once he kind of fell out of that bully role and Zaza, used his goon tactics to kind of push him away and push him into that, I don't know, he just wasn't finishing anything. Stephen Curry was out rebounding him. Like, once that piece fell away, I wasn't so surprised that the Warriors were able to kind of handle the Cavs so well. But I was definitely surprised in the beginning that and I kept thinking he was going to get it back. He's a super athletic guy. He's got a great nose for the boards, and he's got a pretty decent touch. So that part surprised me because he should have had an edge for the team going against the Dubs.
Great. I'm so glad you said that, because on the last pod when we did talk about Cleveland, I said my biggest disappointment was Tristan Thompson from that finals performance, and just the fact that he was a non-factor. Everything you said was spot on. I don't really need to repeat any of that. I wasn't really surprised. We knew LeBron was going to play like LeBron James. It was a supporting cast. It just didn't add up. Between Durant, Clay, Draymond, and Curry. That was too much. Iggy was healthy. Last year or the year before he had the back spasms or whatever. He was in tip-top shape. Was it McAdoo? McAdoo or McCall? McCall, right? He played some big time. Yeah, he played some great defense in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, that was huge.
Stood out.
I think that's actually, that comes across in what the Cavs tried to do this offseason as well, as like the Warriors, they got such value out of the bottom of the bench, like David West, JaVale in the minutes he played, Zaza in his minutes, McCaw, like all of these guys, and obviously Iguodala and Sean Livingston.
Yeah,
players in the league. But go ahead.
I was going to say, if you told me going into the NBA Finals that McCall was going to play more than Ian Clark, I probably would have laughed at you. I didn't think he would play more minutes than him. But like you said, he definitely – the bottom of the bench guys were what at the end of the day, won that final to a degree because they were just so good.
Yeah, and like if they're constantly outdueling the Cavs bench guys, then it makes sense that this offseason, they went out, got Wade, they got Jeff Green, Derrick Rose, etc.
Upon beating the Cavs in the finals, I didn't think that was a surprise. I thought the Cavs defense going in was kind of shaky, and I kind of felt really confident about the Warriors. Like Kory mentioned, I think around that point in March when Kevin Durant went down and then they had, they lost two, I think, and then they went on that winning streak. That's when I really bought into the Warriors a lot. But were you guys surprised at how well KD fit in Golden State and how successful he was, obviously winning finals MVP?
There were a couple moments earlier in the season where I questioned the fit. And there was like one moment in particular that I remember very vividly, which was when against the Grizzlies, KD had a matchup he liked at the end of the fourth where Zach Randolph was guarding him. And he kind of sized him up and, just took a pull-up three. And immediately after the play, Draymond was just yelling in his face. Pretty much the team was expressing that ball needed to go to Stephen Curry. They wanted him taking the last shot. Meanwhile, KD, he liked his matchup. And I do think he had the right matchup there and he should have taken it to the rim. But I remember there was like a point where I was like, okay, like everybody was saying, oh, they're yelling at each other. The chemistry is not going to happen. And I was happy that they were yelling at each other because they both had valid points. On the one hand, the matchup was good. On the other hand, Stephen Curry is their go-to guy. So as soon as that started happening and they were being very vocal with each other, kind of yelling at each other, I thought they had a chance to kind of iron things out. You gotta get it going. You gotta be vocal with each other if you're really gonna start meshing. So once that was happening in the next game, the team just started clicking a little bit more. So after some of those verbal scuffles, I started really buying in and believing that the team was going to mesh.
Yeah, that's a great point. It was like they held each other accountable. There wasn't any pussyfooting around. He went right to Durant. And Durant's obviously such a superstar. It's kind of hard at times to go after a superstar like that. But we know Draymond has no expressing his thoughts, which I think for the Warriors is one of the good things, especially early on in the season when they were trying to get everything back on, fit Kevin Durant within the offense. Draymond's the kind of vocal guy because I don't think Curry or Clay would say anything to Durant like that, especially in that setting. But, Draymond obviously won't hold any shots.
And I think like those sort of arguments really matter going into the playoffs where with OKC, KD and Russell obviously had their issues, but it was never talked about. They both kind of just sulked and like you could tell from their body language that they were upset when the other one took a shot that they wanted to take, but they never really just argued it out and got through it. So in the playoffs, like that pecking order wasn't really established. Whereas with the Warriors, I think they argued it out. And so when they went into the playoffs, it was like, oh, it's clear we're going to communicate when we want the ball, when we think the other should have the ball.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, go ahead, Kory.
I would just say you said it best, communication. I take communication at school, and it's interpersonal communication. Russ and Kevin Durant didn't know how to communicate with each other, and right off the bat, the Warriors had expressing how they thought things should go and how they should be.
100% agree with you guys. I think that was a big factor for the season, and it really helped with the chemistry, like you said, holding each other accountable. But talking highlight, what was the biggest highlight of the Warriors season? Obviously, winning the championship and being another 60-plus win season is great. But player-wise, play type, who really stuck out for you on the Warriors?
I've got a Klay Thompson bias just by nature because he's too hilarious, and just the fact that he came out from the beginning of the KD signing and he said, "Hey, I'm not giving anything up. I'm going to take my shots. I'm going to be just fine." And it's just incredible to me that Klay pretty much kept the exact same role. And, they brought in Kevin Durant and it just, the whole pace and space offense didn't flinch, like Klay kept going off ball. Steph kept taking his shots. And it was just a major standout point to me is just the fact that they brought in a superstar and he bought into the system and the system stayed steady. And Klay is a perfect example of that because his role barely changed.
I'll give you. I don't really have a player. I think it's hard to pick a player, but I'll just give you two things: 11 dribbles, 3 seconds, and scored 60 points in 3 quarters, pretty much, on my beloved Indiana Pacers.
That's
me,
real
that
you picked it.
Yeah.
It stands me for so many reasons. One, I watched my team get obliterated, and two, phenomenal. I mean, 11 dribbles, 60 points, held the ball for just 90 seconds. For me, that's the highlight, and that just shows, how deadly this team is. Because, like you mentioned, even though Clay said he wasn't going to give anything up, and he really didn't give anything up if you look at his stats. He still was the third option on this team behind Durant and Curry, despite his stats not changing. And the third guy on your option dropped 60 in 11 dribbles in 90 seconds.
The offense fed the hot hand, and that's what you want out of a system like that. Like, you want everybody to be moving. You want that ball flying around and finding the guy who's going to put it in the hoop.
And it was in 29 minutes. You have to add that too.
No, it's absurd. I completely forgot to mention the toaster, and that's on me. But
I know you're big on the toaster.
The toaster blessing was real.
For me, I think I'm going to have to go. I mean, I could easily go with Kevin Durant's performance in the finals, hitting that shot over LeBron. I thought that was huge. That was just nasty. Yeah. But the guy we mentioned before, I think Patrick McCaw, getting him in the second round and him really looking like a piece that they could have for the future that could be a nice bench piece or maybe possibly starting at some point. I don't know. I know a lot of people are really high on him in Golden State, and I'm pretty sure he had a nice summer league too. So, I mean,
he looked great in the summer league.
Yeah, and this is I think he's on a contract year, so this could be another big year for him too.
Yeah, I think he might end up having to go the Ian Clark route where he gets signed somewhere else, but if he does, it's definitely going to be for a lot more money because he's an athletic wing. He's put on a little bit of muscle, but the tray ball is falling now. Like in the summer league, he was I think he had 30 plus 1 or 2 times. Like he looks really good right now, and the defensive intensity is right there.
And like Kory mentioned earlier, to get minutes in the finals the way he did, I thought that was big. And that's obviously going to help any young player's confidence.
Yeah.
But biggest disappointment of the Warriors season? Is there one?
I guess.
Come on. There's no way.
The season, like, for me, my biggest regret looking back on the season, I'm a little offended that Ian Clark didn't get a bigger contract coming out of it, but that's off-season stuff. For the season, I wanted JaVale to take a bigger step. I really thought he would take Zaza's role, and I thought he was going to become a starting center. And, I'm not super torn up by the fact that he didn't, but I thought that progression was going to be there, and I thought that mental progression was going to be there where he played valuable minutes in the playoffs. But it ended up being that, all of the haters were kind of right where the team didn't trust him in the playoffs. Zaza's a smart guy. He makes the right passes. He's gritty on defense. He's gritty on the boards. And, although JaVale is amazing for those moments where, the whole team can just throw him lobs and he's super efficient, I just thought he was going to make that next mental step where his defensive IQ was there. He was picking up the right assignments and making the right passes on offense. And that didn't really happen. So that was a little disappointing.
Yeah. If you wanted to go that route, that's probably the only player you could see some kind of disappointment in. Because as much as he hates the Shaq-a-teen fool or whatever it is that he always is.
Fool.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has earned that title. Even in the playoffs, in the finals, even though he never played more than 10 minutes in any of those finals games, he had a couple big-time minutes, though, where he had a block, a couple of rebounds.
Yeah.
He has meaningful moments. They're just never stringed out consistently or long enough.
Exactly. I was hoping, that he was going to be able to play 18 minutes of just straight, that similar sort of dominance where sometimes he looks like he could be a great center in the league. He gets these crazy blocks. He has these crazy finishes, but then they're bookended by kind of ditzy plays.
Exactly. I think like you wrote a great article mid-season, I think, about the Warriors and McGee and what he could kind of bring to the team. And I think, like you said, it's just about consistency and making that mental jump. Maybe this year he can make it. He had a big improvement if you think about where he was before the season started in comparison to what the Warriors kind of did with him. And he became an effective player for them, where there was a chance he might not end up on an NBA team. So I think, he did have some success, but I could see the disappointment too for not making that final progression. But for me, I mean, I don't think he can be disappointed with 60 plus wins, having Kevin Durant, Steph Curry winning a championship. I think life is pretty good for the Warriors. But talking ranking, I don't think there's much to really talk about. They're number one by our writers, and I don't think anybody can argue that the Warriors are not the best team in the NBA. There's not much of an argument anywhere.
Yeah, it's tough to do. They're just a 2K team right now.
Pretty much, and they're better than most 2K teams. They're just so efficient. We didn't even talk about it. The amount of categories that they rank number one in the league is ridiculous.
Yeah,
they're just such a dominant team, and just amazing to watch. But
If you actually check
ahead,
2K though, the Cavs are ranked 1 across the board, and the Warriors are ranked 2 across the board. If you look at 2K.
Wow.
Well, 2K just lost all credibility in my book. So, I mean, that's terrible. Honestly, we know 2K ratings are bad, but that is just a joke.
That's a little messy.
Yeah, some people don't even have the Cavs the second best team in the league. So, yeah, I mean,
the defense is what you have to worry about. And the Warriors defense is incredible. And that's where that's where the team starts. And it just defensive intensity, defensive communication. And that's what you have to wonder about with the Cavs.
Yeah, they just don't have the type of elite defensive players that the Warriors have and the system that they play. But, 2K better change that on the first roster update.
Yeah, Tyronn Lue's paying somebody.
The LeBron connection. But let's talk offseason. Additions, they didn't have a draft pick going to the draft. They bought a pick off the Bulls, I think, for $3+ million.
3.5 mil.
3.5 mil. So they put out the Bucks, and everybody put out the Bucks, but they bought it from the Bulls. And everyone was kind of surprised the Bulls sold the pick, but they got Jordan Bell, 38. He showed some nice flashes in Summer League as well. Yeah. What are your thoughts on him? What can he bring to this team?
So
this year,
Bulls fans are furious right now. Every time I see Bulls fans on Reddit and there's a Jordan Bell thread, they're pretty pissed because Garpax, I don't know what they're doing over there, but
they should be pissed.
Jordan Bell looks great. He's not a very big guy, but he's ridiculously athletic. He had one of the best combines in terms of his, I think it's his 3/4 speed. One of those, he was pretty much at the top of the board for most of the athletic categories. He can fly. He's kind of like a defensive minded Kenneth Faried, who's a little bit more athletic and idolizes Draymond Green a bit more. So he's completely, all he wants to do is play defense, get steals, get blocks, and then dunk the ball on the opposite end. And in the Summer League, we've started to see that where, he had a bunch of plays in their last game against the Timberwolves where he was stripping guards, big men, getting blocks, and on the other end, he can jump with the best of them. And he's very exciting. The Warriors have been trying to pick up smart big men over the past couple of years, so we drafted Kevon Looney, Damian Jones, and then both of them are interesting players. Neither of them really developed into what we wanted, but Jordan Bell really looks like he could take that step. And for him, he's not really huge. He can't bang with the 7-footers, but if he can be sort of like a Draymond Green and play a little bit bigger than him, that would really be great. And they actually also got his teammate at Oregon. They were both actually competing for the blocks records at Oregon, and that's Chris Boucher, who's from Montreal. And he's like a complete just a prospect. He'll probably spend a ton of time in the G League, but he's interesting as well because Boucher is he's about, I think, 7 foot, 6'10", something like that. He's a big guy, super long, gets a ton of blocks, and on the offensive end, he's got the tray ball. So when he gets back from injury, it'll be interesting to see if him and Jordan Bell resume their positive rivalry from being teammates in college.
Almost everything you said about Jordan Jordan Bell is spot on. I mean, this guy is, a younger Kenneth Faried. And that's just what the Warriors need. You don't need a guy who stands out, little things, who hustles, who gets the extra rebound, who goes up for a dunk, plays hard on defense. And because offensively, you don't want guys who are going to take away touches. You want guys who can get some scrappy putback dunks, transitional layups and dunks. And Jordan Bell fits that mold. I mean, this kid could play a lot of minutes, I think, this next season. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if they want to stay with this death ball lineup and they want to keep running faster, you can put Jordan Bell out there at a power forward position with Draymond playing center. This kid, he balled out in summer league, and I'm actually really looking forward to seeing him play, alongside of guys like Durant and Draymond, like when they're all on the floor, because I think he just complements them very well with his hustle.
Yeah, and we already saw in the summer league there was one play where, and he says after the game that Draymond drew it up, but pretty much ended with Draymond throwing a lob to him baseline, and the defense didn't see it coming, but the play worked perfectly, and the fact that they're already drawing stuff up like that and that his teammates are drawing stuff up like that in the preseason is a great sign. And I think, he's got the IQ to play off ball like that, and that's really important. You want fighters at your big men spots, and he seems like he's got great potential there.
Yeah, you guys made a ton of great points, and like you mentioned, a second-round pick, kind of like McCaw, they could get lucky again in the second round and get somebody contributing right away. But they also were busy in terms of free agency, re-signing their own guys. Ton of free agents. They re-signed Steph. They got KD at a pay cut. They re-signed Andre Iguodala, JaVale McGee, Sean Livingston, Zaza, David West. They were able to bring everybody back. And I remember going into the offseason, it looked like everybody was going to stay, but there was a chance, especially Iguodala. There was a lot of talk about him going to Houston. Who are you surprised that they're able to keep the most?
I would say JaVale. I thought he was going to get offered more money somewhere else. But I guess people saw the same thing where they were like, okay, he put it together. I mean, he had his best season in like years, I would say. But I guess teams didn't want to pay extra for a guy where they weren't sure if it was his progression or just the system around him. But I thought he was going to get pulled somewhere else. Iguodala, I was pretty comfortable. I figured the team knew his value and they would find a way to re-sign him. And, KD knew his value and probably would want to take a little bit less just to get Iggy back. But, yeah, it's funny just on Iguodala's re-signing, Bob Myers said, the Warriors GM, he said it was like the toughest negotiation he's ever had to deal with. So, yeah, I was happy to get him back, but I felt like he was just trying to use his negotiation tactics the whole way.
I wholeheartedly agree with the fact that he was definitely using like the Rockets and the Spurs and everyone else who was in Iggy as leverage. He was the only guy I thought could have left 2 NBA titles. Unless he really wanted to keep winning, you could have left, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I thought the Houston, I think, was very enticing for a guy like Iggy, because you definitely will get more minutes if you were playing out, I think, in Houston compared to the Warriors. But, I mean, his role with Golden State is just so imperative. I mean, an all-around guy. I mean, he can pass the ball, he rebounds, he can still score decently. And then defensively, I mean, we can't forget what he did in the 2014-2015 finals when he pretty much limited LeBron James completely at times. So that was definitely a win bringing him back. But if anyone was going to go, I thought it was going to be Iggy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Iggy seemed like a lock at first, but then I think you mentioned, that Houston adding Chris Paul kind of made it a little bit more enticing. But I thought McGee as well. I thought somebody would offer some of the role players a little bigger role. Also was kind of surprised that nobody was able to get a shot at Sean Livingston. I think that was more with Livingston wanting to stay with Golden State. But were you surprised that nobody wanted to offer him good money? Because he's done a great job on the bench for the Warriors for the last few seasons.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised. I mean, I think him and Iguodala are two of the best bench players in the entire league. I think it's very hard to find a backup point guard who's better than Sean Livingston. He was great for the Nets before he came to the Warriors. He's been fantastic for the Warriors. And, Iguodala's played a similar role. They both just kind of get a team focused on offense. They just have like this basketball IQ that's pretty rare to find in the NBA. So I thought people were going to try and pull Sean away, but at the same time, he's such like a mellow guy. He's so team oriented. I kind of wonder if other teams were just like, you know what, it's not even worth it. He's making enough money. He doesn't really need. He's not going to try to get out of there.
Yeah, and where he came from, recovering from the injury and then bouncing back. And like you said, that great season with the Nets, it still hurts me to see him leave. I was so sad. He's one of my all-time favorite players in general. Like you said, high basketball IQ, super lengthy. He's a rare type for a point guard too, because he can't really shoot the jumpers other than mid-range, but he's lethal in that post. So
it's incredible. He's
a unique guy.
He don't miss the post fades. He doesn't miss that. I'm almost convinced if he's anywhere 15 feet in, he don't miss.
Yeah, it's magical. Like that is a dying shot in the NBA and in basketball generally. Like I don't trust pretty much anybody I play with to take that shot. But Sean Livingston, oh man, he could take that shot any day. Like it's just a great shot.
Just imagine if he gets matched up with Isaiah Thomas in the finals.
Oh my God.
Or even Derrick Rose isn't, tall enough to match up with Livingston.
Yeah.
He's a 6'7", super lanky. So, but they also picked up some guys. The rich got richer. They got Nick Young, Omri Caspary. Two offensive players. I think both these guys could, have some success in Golden State. What are your thoughts on these additions?
Well, one thing that I think is interesting is when you look at the roster, Sean Livingston is the backup point, and most teams have a third backup point guard, in case the backup gets hurt. But I think it speaks to Andre Iguodala's value, where the Warriors, they picked up two more of those lengthy small ball wings, where they can defend multiple positions and play outside. So Caspi and Nick Young are a very similar mold to the Klay Thompson type player, where they're both probably around 6'6", 6'7", maybe even 6'8", and they can both rattle off threes and defend, a one, a two, or a three. And I think the reason that they were able to go out and pick those guys up is because they know that Andre Iguodala can run the backup point if need be. But yeah, I honestly was surprised that they got both of them. I thought, because now there's just a logjam at the backcourt. I mean, the backcourt bench it's looking a little crowded, and that's a luxury to have, but I wasn't so sure that they needed to get both of those guys, but it's great to have them, it's good to have too much depth, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, Nick Young is just another shooter, like you mentioned. Caspi's a little bit taller. He's actually like more of a 6'9". I think for him, he's more of going to be like a stretch four, a guy who they can put out the four, who can shoot threes a little bit better than obviously Jordan Bell's not really a 3-point shooter. And as we know, the big man on their roster, even though JaVale McGee has been shooting a ton of threes in practice.
The mellow gym.
I don't think he'll be out there a ton. But Cassie's definitely a guy they needed, I think, for who can shoot a little bit more. But Nick Young, I mean, defensively, he looked like he was more engaged last year with the Lakers than years prior. I mean, he's nothing special. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play as much as he may think he is, especially if McCall keeps on playing well. I think if McCall, plays really well out the gate, his minutes right there going away.
Yeah.
But we know Nick Young is an offense. To see Nick Young take a couple threes and celebrate too early like a Curry and misses.
So wait, Kory, you're saying that Nick Young's not getting minutes over Klay Thompson?
Believe it or not, no. That's the hottest take I'm taking, Nick.
Oh man, I know you saved it for the last one. Good thing. But like these guys said, I think it's going to give them some more versatility, some more shooting, some more offensive pop, like they needed any. And Draymond's going to hold everybody accountable, so these guys are probably going to play better defense than what we've seen from them in the past. So, Théo, like you said, more depth. It's such an advantage, especially going into the season. The Warriors have been pretty lucky injury-wise, knock on wood.
Yep.
They have some more guys in case something were to happen. But talking departures, nothing crazy. Matt Barnes, James Michael McAdoo, and then your guy Ian Clark. What are your thoughts on losing these guys, and who do you think they'll miss the most?
Matt Barnes, he came in kind of when KD went down, I think, and he's great to have. Old Warriors fans love him. He's part of the We Believe era. and he's just great from a grit standpoint. You miss him just for that locker room presence. Nick Young came into this summer a little heavier. Steve Kerr said he was a little chunky and he wasn't shooting so well. So with Matt Barnes on the team, it's another Draymond voice to be like telling people to get in shape. So I think he's probably missed the most. Ian Clark is also just loved by the team. He was a great guy. He bonded with KD super early. I feel like, yeah, he's a great guy to have on the team, and it's rough to see him go, but he just has so many more minutes for him now on the Pelicans. So the team's probably happy for him that he's got a bigger role now. And James Michael McAdoo, ultimate professional. He did his time. He tried guarding LeBron a couple times. I was never super happy seeing him check into the game over other people, but I always appreciated his effort, so he'll be missed as well.
Yeah, I don't think they miss anyone personally. It's hard for me to say they're going to miss anyone when you still keep the most important players on your team and you still retain your most important bench players and you add a couple guys who can just slide right in. I think it's just if you got connected to those players, if you felt a connection, if you liked watching them, I guess that's the only thing you can miss. But realistically, they're not going to lose more games because they're losing Matt Barnes.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they all, brought a little bit something to the table, but it's all replaceable by different guys that either brought in or guys who are going to step up. So, Warriors a great offseason like they needed to have one, but starters. Who is going to be opening night starters? Do we even have to talk about this, or we already kind of know, right?
It's the same as last year, yeah. It's just it'll be consistent. We'll see again. It'll be the same question as last year, where we find out throughout the season if Zaza remains the starting center, or if JaVale bites at it, or if the dream scenario is that Jordan Bell turns into just a monster and takes over a starting spot. But we'll see about that. But the starting lineup, Steph, Clay, KD, Dre, Zaza, that's going to stay the same.
Yeah,
no
it doesn't.
Yeah, I was going to
say
say.
It changes.
Yeah,
It's the same 5 for me.
If you had to put a percentage on it, who do you think has the best chance of taking Zaza's spot in the starting lineup?
I don't want the Georgian Mafia to start knocking on my door. So I'm going to say 0% chance across the board. Zaza's a guaranteed all-star this season, starting center for the Warriors.
Imagine he's voted all-star captain. That would be ridiculous.
I would love it.
If anyone takes his spot, it is going to be Jordan Bell, I think. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot. Never mind. You have to have Zaza out there just for the tip, anyways. So no.
Yeah.
Changes maybe because I don't think McGee makes enough of a jump for them to want to put him in a starting lineup.
Yeah, what Zaza does is he doesn't play the most minutes at the 5, but it's that beginning of the game toughness where that's what the Warriors with Andrew Bogut were built on as well. Is that guy who plays the 5 is supposed to be a bit of a jerk. He's supposed to be this gritty, annoying guy where the other team doesn't want to play against him because he's pushing you the whole time and he doesn't give a shit. He'll foul you if he needs to. He's just going to play hard. And so that first 10 minutes, the opposing big man is just super frustrated, And I think that's what Zaza does well, and he does better than JaVale can. He does better than Jordan Bell can because he's a big guy, and you don't need to ask too much of him. You just need him to go out there and push people around. And in the finals, we saw what happened with Tristan Thompson, where he got pushed around a bit, and it kind of took him out of his game because he gets bullied first by this huge Georgian guy, and then eventually Draymond Green is playing against you, and he's a bit of a bully, but he's also fast. So I think Zaza stays the starting center just for that, the mental toughness that he brings, and the physical kind of just the mess, that he makes that paint a bit of a nightmare for the other team.
Yeah, I would say his basketball IQ is a little bit underrated. He's also a good screen setter too. So obviously with players like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and KD, and like you mentioned, the toughness and the edge, when you have players like I just mentioned, you kind of need an enforcer a little bit, somebody that's going to protect those guys and, lay down a little extra toughness. So I think, he'll probably stay in the lineup. like you said, I don't think McGee can do it. The only way, it would probably have to be Bell, and it would have to be some amazing, rookie season. But
Yeah.
what's your favorite lineup this team can throw out there? I know we usually talk small ball in top 5, but they invented small ball, so you can just give me your favorite lineup.
So not the small ball lineup.
It can be small ball, whatever is your favorite. It could,
Yeah, it's like I think that's one of the funnest. We'll look back on this in years and say it's one of the funnest lineups ever. The Steph, Clay, Iguodala, KD, Dre lineup is just
amazing.
incredible. Everybody's basketball IQ is on 100. They can all do just everything on the basketball court. It's really exciting to see.
Yeah, for me, my dream lineup is Curry, Durant, and then Jordan Bell, and then Draymond. I'm really interested to see Jordan Bell. I don't think they need any more shooters on the floor. I would like to see a guy who can just run the floor and do the little things.
Yeah, it will be fun. I'm like Jordan Bell is just a huge X factor for this season because like that sort of athleticism paired with basketball IQs like that it's really clutch. And it's important that a guy comes into the NBA saying before he was drafted by the Warriors that the two players that he looks up to the most are LeBron and Draymond Green. Like you want guys who appreciate basketball played that way. And he's just going to be fun basketball because on defense he really brings it, and on offense like that speed, that vert, like that'll be useful.
Yeah, we saw Draymond, I think, hit him on an alley-oop in preseason already. So, like you
Yep.
said, I think the fact that he loves Draymond, that's such a plus, and it's going to only help him as a rookie because if you're going to get minutes as a rookie, if you go out there and play hard defense, do the little thing, coach is going to be able to throw you out there for a few extra minutes than what you might necessarily get if you only just are playing on talent.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the bench a little bit. Who do you think is going to be, I know you mentioned to me off the pod, there might be some changes on the bench. What do you think is going to be a little bit different this year?
So the major thing is Ian Clark is gone now. So Patrick McCaw should be next in line. It's going to be that the point guard and the small forward spot are pretty set in stone. It's going to be Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala, and you know what you get out of them. Then at the 2 guard, you have McCaw, Nick Young, and Omri Caspi. Caspi can play the 3 as well, maybe the 4, but like those are really the 3 who are playing that 2-3 role. At the 4, like the bench last year was interesting because David West could play the 4 for a traditional lineup. It could be David West and JaVale on the bench, but David West kind of ended up playing the 5 against some teams. So it gets a little messy where if they want to go small ball with the bench, then you can put Caspi at the 4 and Jordan Bell at the 5, or you can put Iguodala at the 4, Jordan Bell at the 5, David West at the 5. So this year, what I'm really curious about is to see if Jordan Bell takes away David West minutes and maybe even some of JaVale's minutes, and to see if Patrick McCaw is going to keep his role or if Nick Young and Caspi are going to bite into it. So, the Warriors like playing with lineups. They like playing with lineups based on the other team's talent as well. So it's an exciting year to be an assistant coach on the Dubs.
What are your thoughts on the bench? Anything, Kory? Or are you?
I mean, I really like Amar Caspi. I think that was one of the most underrated signings necessarily needed. But, he brings us a guy at the 4 who can shoot. He's a decent not facilitator, but he moves the ball decently. He's not anything special defensively at all. But it's a guy who they really didn't have who can play a stretch 4 position. And Durant can still stay at the 3, which I really do like. I think there could be a lot of lineups where you have Draymond, Caspi, Durant, Clay, and Curry out there. It's funny how many different players you can plug in just by moving around the key 4 guys. Because you could also have a lineup where Durant's at the 4 and Iggy's at the 3 with Curry, Clay, and Draymond. And like you said, with all the pluggable in pieces they have, how they like to match other teams. They have so many role players on this team to make at least 15. Maybe not 15. It's a little bit overdoing it, but they have so many different combinations they can put out on the floor at one time.
Yeah, a lot of versatility. And like you mentioned, when you have a guy like a Kevin Durant and a Draymond Green that can play so many different positions and defend so many positions, it just allows you to do so many different things. And then obviously just all the talent on this roster. But breakout starter, do you see anybody in the starting lineup breaking out, or are they all, it's kind of really hard for this team to get any better?
Yeah, for them breaking out, the two things I think that you want to see progression from, or you want to see some, like, you want that line to continue trending upwards, is Kevin Durant's meshing with the offense, which we saw happen, but we just want to see a little bit of a cleaner offense, some less ISOs with him and Steph. And then the story with Klay Thompson over the past 2 years has been his comfort handling the ball, where you don't want him in a half court set handling the ball, but I want to see a little bit more transition comfort with the rock in his hands. Because last season, I thought he had a bunch of big steps going forward with his ball handling, and I thought he looked way more comfortable than before. But that's the only thing you would want, is where Klay is just in the transition a bit more of a threat when he has the ball in his hands, and a little bit quicker passing the ball or making cuts when the ball is actually in his hands and, getting dribbled, as opposed to just the 11 dribbles, 60 points type stuff.
For me, I think if you want to sit here for another hour, I'll go through game by game who will be the breakout player for each game, depending on matchups. I don't think I can't say there's a definitive breakout player. And like we mentioned before, matchup will be a big point. If there's if Curry's going against Austin Rivers, I'm not sure why I picked him of all players, but if they going against Austin Rivers, he's going to cook him for about 45 on 10 dribbles. Depends on who the matchup is on what given night and what they're trying to accomplish.
I got two questions for you. First, how much does Steph drop on Lonzo Ball in their first matchup?
No, he's just a super sweet guy. He'll probably let Lonzo Ball score a ton of points, and Steph will just chill out. But no, he'll probably go for 40 plus. I think he's just for the theatrics of it. He's into giving the people a show, so I feel like he's gonna try and just light it up.
I think the Warriors will blow that Laker team out the first time they play. 'Cause we know, if you guys ever, I know you know this, Théo. I know you know this as well, Nick. The Lakers have been one of the few teams the last couple of years that beat the Warriors.
Yep.
And I think especially now that Lonzo's there and all the hype and LeVar, they're a playoff team, yada yada yada. Surprised if that game is like a 130 to like 87 just shell casing of an absolute obliteration.
Yeah, I think in the past the Warriors took a little bit of the foot off the pedal against the Lakers, because they knew it was like a flower that was starting to grow, and they like Luke Walton a lot. They wanted to respect his operations, so maybe they didn't
let him
go
live
too hard. Yeah, but maybe this season they'll have a bit more of a chip on their shoulder and might go at the Lakers a bit more intensely.
All right, second question. Who has the best chance on the Warriors to win MVP this season?
Kevin Durant.
I agree.
Yeah, if he plays like he did in the finals all season long, he's the guy.
No chance for Steph, or are you just like Kevin Durant better?
Steph has a chance, but KD just does more on the roster. I think like he's the ultimate heel in the NBA. Like, people can't stand him across America, but it doesn't really matter. He on offense, everybody knows what he can do. He's just completely dominant. Once he clicks into the offense, as he did in the finals, like, the guy, you can't stop him from scoring, especially in the transition, but just anywhere. And then I think what people are going to start realizing more this coming season is that he's really developed into one of the best help defenders in the NBA.
Yep.
People know KD as a guy who isn't great at defense. Even already in the preseason, Jamal Crawford crossed him up a little bit. But I'm not even worried about his on-ball defense. His off-ball help defense last season was really huge for the Warriors. The guy's 7 foot tall, super lanky, quicker than any other 7-footer in the league. He gets blocks that nobody else can get, and just that effect that he has on defense, I think, could be a turning point, for MVP voting. Last season, the two and James Harden, and if a Warriors player was to take that from those guys who are just the focal points of their teams completely, then it would have to be KD, because on offense, he obviously does it. But on defense, he does way more than Steph can do, just by nature of his size and his role.
I think that's a great point. I mean, that's one thing in OKC that I felt like he needed to improve on. In his first year in Golden State, he definitely took a step forward in that category, especially like you said, as a help defender. Having that frame, that length, that athleticism, he can definitely be dominant on that side of the ball. But breakout bench player for the Warriors this year. No explanation. You just can give me a guy.
It has to be two. It has to be McCaw and Jordan Bell.
Yeah, I'm going with Jordan Bell as well.
I'm going with my guy McCaw. I really like this kid. So I think he's going to have a big season. And, just getting minutes in the finals, I think, is enough to kind of make me excited for him. But best case scenario – oh, go ahead, Théo.
I was just going to say, and all he did in the finals really was scored layups, and now his three ball looks a lot better. So if he can take that step, McCaw is really primed to have a great year.
Especially when you're surrounded by, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, everything kind of just works out. But best case scenario for the Warriors next season, win-wise and, playoff-wise.
Well, what was it last season? 67 wins or 68, I think.
67.
67? All right, so that sounds like a lucky number to me. I'll go with 67 wins and a sweep in the finals. What I'm worried about is the three finals that they're going to have to go through before the actual finals against the East, So that's going to be a bit of a nightmare, is having to play the Thunder, the Rockets, and the Spurs potentially before getting to the Cavs. But, best case scenario is making it through the West without injuries, and then getting to play LeBron again.
Yeah, best case scenario is this team. What was the record they set? 73-9.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's 73.
I'm saying, yeah, okay. Best case scenario is they get 74 wins, and they win all 16 playoff games. But probably not all 16. They probably sweep the first three rounds, winning 5 in the finals again. That's best case scenario.
I mean, I think best case scenario, 82-0. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't be that surprised. I think 70 is a real possibility.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're that interested in going for the winning title again. So I don't know if they'll go for 74. I don't think it really matters that much. But as if they have a really dominant playoff run. But I think the competition in the Western Conference, I'm agreeing with you, Théo, I think is going to be tougher than what they do face. A Houston, a San Antonio, and OKC could maybe put up a better fight than what the Cavs can by the time they face them. Because like we mentioned on the Cavs preview, Kory, they have a lot of question marks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, honestly, thinking of it, the reason the playoffs are going to be such a tough task is because they'll be fatigued by playing all of those really talented teams. And the real best case scenario is that the bench and all of the depth really steps up throughout the season so that the starters don't have to play too much, So you would hope that the starters play, ideally under 35 minutes a game apiece, and that, you can have Nick Young and Caspi out there and Jordan Bell and McCaw, et cetera, for most of the game. So ideally the team would just have super balanced minutes throughout the season, keep injuries low, keep fatigue low, so that they go into the playoffs as fresh as can be.
Very true. Worst case scenario for the Warriors next season.
Oh, man. Kevin Durant leaves the team to go start working with Twitter full time and just responding to trolls. And I guess that's got to be it.
I was waiting for that to pop up.
Yeah. KD just decides he prefers his alternate life more than his NBA life and gets out of there.
It's Kevin Durant aims keyboard and shoots an uppercase. I think worst case scenario would be them getting I Worst case scenario, honestly, is I don't care what the worst case scenario record is, because that means I think they win 65 games easy or right around there. They don't win a chip, right? And if they don't seal the deal, then it's a waste.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the only way they don't win a championship is if there's an injury to one of the main four guys, to a Steph, Clay, KD, or Green. I think that could hinder them. But I also believe that if one of those guys went down, I think it's still a possibility they could still win a championship. That's how talented they are. Who do you think has the biggest threat, the best chance to knock out the Warriors?
I suppose the darkest timeline for Warriors fans is that after all of this Kevin Durant drama, they kind of coast into the playoffs and then are faced with a Thunder team where Melo and Russ each have a chip on their shoulder. Russ obviously has the most ridiculous chip on his shoulder, and they just like can't keep up with that intensity. So like the Spurs, Draymond has mentioned, are the biggest threat because they run such an effective system. But I still don't believe in LaMarcus Aldridge, so I'm not too worried there. The Spurs were the biggest problem last playoffs before Kawhi got hurt. But I still think just if I would be scared of one team in particular, it's the Thunder, just because of Russ's drive and the new pieces they got.
For me, I think I'm going to go with their biggest threat in the West and then their biggest threat in the East. The biggest threat in the East actually is just, it's easy. It's LeBron James and the Cavs. And that's only because of the depth. I think although the Spurs are always going to be tough because of the system they play in, like you mentioned, Théo, with the ball movement and just Popovich being, as we know, probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach in NBA history. I think it's actually the Houston Rockets, personally. Of the selflessness, I believe, that's going to come about with Paul and James Harden, the nice 3-and-D players they have up and down that roster, in depth as well. I think they can match the firepower of the Warriors. I'm not sure if defensively they can hold up, but I think they're the biggest threat in the West.
Yeah, I think go ahead, Théo.
Yeah, I was just going to say we got to see what happens with Clint Capella, if he can take a next step and become more of a defensive power and play more of a Steven Adams role where he really has a consistent impact on the floor. Then yeah, the Rockets become really scary.
Yeah, I think Chris Paul's really going to help him. I think if I had to rank them, I'd probably go Houston, OKC, San Antonio. I think San Antonio, talent-wise, and like you said, I cannot put my hope in LaMarcus Aldridge, especially what I saw last season. And OKC, just the fact, like you mentioned, Russ is missing a chunk of his shoulder. He doesn't have a chip. He's just missing half of that thing. And he's going to go ham, especially if it's the opportunity to make KD look bad. He's going a little extra edge on there. Then Houston, obviously they have question marks because everything still has to fit. But I think they have some nice pieces on their roster where they can kind of match up, not stop Golden State, but they at least have some pieces where they can kind of play similar lineups. They got a little bit better defensively. Obviously things need to gel, but that'd be a fun series. I would love to see Houston and Golden State in the Western Conference Finals. Realistically, though, what do you think happens this season for Golden State?
I mean, realistically, they should go back to where they were last season and play LeBron again in the finals. They have more depth than the Thunder, even though the Thunder have a ridiculous starting lineup now. They've got more talent than the Spurs, even though the Spurs have such a fantastic system. And I think their matchups, like defensively, they're better than the Rockets, and they've got better matchups than the Rockets do, where at the end of the day, James Harden or Chris Paul is going to have a hard time keeping up with Clay all game. So I think they should be able to make it out of the West. Realistically, they'll make it out of the West pretty tired, and it could be a 5-6 game series against the Cavs. Hopefully not 7, because nobody wants to play LeBron in Game 7. But I'm not so sure moving Tristan Thompson to the bench helps the Cavs. I don't think Kevin Love has the grit that they need at the 5 spot. Hopefully Tristan Thompson, if I'm the Cavs, then hopefully Tristan Thompson gets it together and can play a more meaningful role. But realistically, I think we see a repeat of last year, but with a more intense Western Conference.
Yeah, I think realistically, they win right around 64, 65 games, maybe a few more near 70. I think they do have a tougher playoff road than years prior because of Houston, because of the changes that OKC has made. I mean, I don't realistically believe any of those teams can take more than a game off of the Warriors if the Warriors are healthy and playing at their best. And the same thing goes for the finals. I mean, I'm predicting the Warriors to repeat.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on the limb here, and I think Golden State's gonna repeat. Yeah, I mean it's gonna be tough. No, not really though. I think they will have a harder matchups in the Western Conference, but at the end of the day, the Cavs didn't get much better in my book. I mean, Jay Crowder I think will help them in certain aspects, but I don't think you can really look at either roster going into the season right now and think that the Cavs could last more than 5 games unless like you mentioned, Théo, they're really banged up and they have to go 6 with OKC, 6 with Houston. And they're really banged up and tired, but otherwise, the Warriors are pretty much. They're for me they're a bigger lock this season to win a championship than last year, and just because we've already seen them do it once, the chemistry is going to get better. Guys are going to take another step. They have more pieces on the bench. It's really hard to have an argument against them. What would be your argument against the Warriors not winning a championship, if you had one?
It would be that the Iguodala and Sean Livingston are older now. Iguodala's back might not be able to hold up for the entire playoffs. And, I think that really is it, that like even in the first round, if they have to play a team like the Timberwolves or the Nuggets, that's a lot to deal with. Like the Patriots looked more dominant going into this season than they did last season. So everybody thought, like a lot of people were talking about them going undefeated throughout the regular season. And we saw from the beginning, the Chiefs fought them immediately. And like so much of team sports is the willpower that you bring into a game and how fresh you are and how hard you fight. Obviously in football, they're pretty much literally fighting, so it matters a bit more. But I think for the Warriors, that's the biggest test, is like how conditioned the entire team is going to be. So I think Steve Kerr is a great coach. I think Ron Adams is obviously the best assistant coach in the NBA and has been for as long as I can remember. So those guys should do a good job. But, if at any point the team kind of lets up a little bit, gets a little too high on themselves and doesn't worry too much about their conditioning, then that's the concern, is that they'll go into the playoffs at not playing as their best selves.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern is injuries. I don't have much of a concern.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the point about maybe not having the same edge they won last year, but like you said, great coaching is going to help them deal with that, and they should be fine. And hopefully, knock on wood, they stay healthy and everything's good, and we get to see another amazing season. Do you think this team is going to go down? Before we get into the truth, do you think this team's going to go down as the best team ever?
You would need to get a championship this year and then another next year for that to be a legit argument. Like
I think that's going to happen.
I could already start debating it, but that's a bit of homerism. Like it's hard because every time they beat LeBron, the LeBron MJ argument goes in MJ's favor. And anytime the argument goes in MJ's favor, it's hard to argue that a team is better than a team that had Michael Jordan on it,
Yeah, gotcha.
Look at the depth from the top to the bottom. I feel like this team is one of the most well-rounded teams in NBA history, obviously, if not the most well-rounded. And so we'll see if they win this year, then it starts looking like it.
I mean, they're on the right track. We've talked about this a couple times, Nick, off air. Dynasty started for this team when they won the first chip. That was the start of the dynasty. Even though Kevin Durant didn't come till year 3, this dynasty has already been in place. So when we talk about this Warriors team, you have to start with where they started winning. The ridiculous 2 MVPs by Curry, the title and the losing out to LeBron in the year before last year, and then now the Durant with them era. And I think, you have to win. You definitely have to win this upcoming year. Love to see them win 3 in a row. And then if they were to win 4 in a row, I know we're talking way, way, way down the line. If they were to win 4 in a row, then I think without question, in 5 titles in 6 years, that's greatness right there.
Yeah, I agree with the fact that you said, Théo, like right now you can't say that they are, but if they do what they should do and, win 3 or 4 championships, I'm going to go and I'm going to give a hot take. I think at the end of the day that they will be the best team ever. When everything's said and done after, this team breaks up, which doesn't look like it's going to happen for quite some time because I know there's already talk about maybe Clay taking a pay cut. So if they're able to keep this core 4 together, guys are going to start to come here. They did a pretty good job drafting second-round picks so far, so who knows when this will really end. But moving on to the truth, I got 2 emojis today. They're pretty basic and for good reason. The trophy emoji. Obviously, the Warriors are going to win the chip again. They won a chip last year. They're going to win another chip the year after that. And then obviously the raindrops for the Splash. Splash Brothers, Splash Trio now. Just a Splash team because they have Nick Young who can get super hot. So I just love the Warriors. They're going to be a team I watch all year. But what do you guys got for the truth?
Honestly, what's that creepy clown one? I would go with that because I think they embraced the supervillain role last season, and I think they just have to embrace that again, and just know that there's a target on their back every night. Every team that plays them is going to bring their best because people know that they're already in the greatest team of all time conversation. So they have to embrace being this creepy supervillain type team because that's the only way that they're going to keep an edge and just go through and dominate.
All right. Well, I had the trophy emoji, but honestly, that was too basic because even Nick picked up on that one. So I'm going to go with a different emoji. It's going to have 2 meanings. It's going to be the middle finger emoji. The first meaning is for you, Nick, for stealing the trophy emoji.
Oh,
so
thanks,
damn
Kory.
you. And the second one is the real meaning behind it, though, I'll say is similar to your villain role. And this is them just saying pretty much F you to the rest of the league. We're the best, and you're all going to have to just sit there and wait until we're done ruling for a little bit.
I mean, it's pretty true. But moving on to there, let's talk League Pass. Where do you give the Warriors 1 out of 10?
It doesn't go up to 11 for Klay Thompson. I feel like it has to. Yeah, I give it 11 for Klay Thompson.
Kory, what about you?
For me, I'm going to say, I can't give them a 10. I've given out 10s, but I can't give out the 10 because I'm not a huge I'm not even a Warrior fan. I can't stand this team. I know they're the best team, but I hate them. I'll give them a 9.9. I'll go right underneath the 10 just in spite of them. Got 4 superstars. I mean, they're fun to watch. They're extremely talented, but I hate them.
They get a clean 10 from me. I've been waiting to give it a 10 all year. I had a skewed scale just for the Warriors. So I'm definitely be checking out this team. Obviously, some of the matchups against the bad teams, it won't be entertaining. But, like you said, Théo, every night everybody's be coming for their head top. And I think that, it should be a great season. I'm going to just try to enjoy history.
Yep.
But you would watch the Warriors over what TV show that you like?
I watch all the games, so pretty much any TV show. But I would even deal with watching them over Game of Thrones and risk having anything spoiled. I'll catch up later, but I'll watch the Warriors over that.
Son of a gun! That's the second time in the last 2 pick Game of Thrones.
Well, let's make it a 3-peat because I was going with Game of Thrones.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Well,
you just got to do it too, Kory.
I ain't doing it. I told you a couple weeks ago that I don't think I was going to be able to do it. I'm picking It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, all right.
I don't think I've picked that.
All right, that's a good one.
I hope I don't. But that is my favorite comedy show of all time. Hilarious.
It's fantastic.
Yes. For all intents and purposes, I would skip getting a laugh to see Kevin Durant make people cringe and laugh in their face.
Yeah.
So that wraps it up. that wraps it up for the preview series. Thank you guys for hopping on. Thank you for listening, everybody. Let us know how we did. Let us know which podcast you liked, you didn't like. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Also give us a follow on Twitter at OTG Basketball, and have a great night.
All right, yeah. Thanks for having me.
So this is what I can only imagine what an 82-game season is like after doing these 30 podcasts in about 40 days. I got to go rest my fingers and my wrist.
Yeah, well, you guys are true. I feel like a super sub. I feel like I got to pull in Iguodala and just come in right at the end.
You get to come in for number one. You're good.
Yeah.
I picked the LeBron. I missed, I think, 3 or 4 podcasts.
Oh, okay. You're good then.
I'm the Iron Man.
You had to let RJ sub in a little bit. Nick, you're ready to go to the Celtics now and start your own thing up.
I guess so. That wraps it up, guys. Thank you.